Welcome to Middlesex Moments, the radio program and podcast produced by faculty, staff, and students at Middlesex Community College. I'm Steve Minkler, campus CEO and academic dean, and as always, Middlesex Moments comes to you from the radio and television studios located in the Center for New Media, right here on the main campus of Middlesex Community College in Middletown. And joining me today is newly elected State Representative Quentin Phipps, representing the 100th District, including the city of Middletown. And how are you doing today, Q?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Okay. And congratulations on your election.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm super excited. So this district, I call it home. I said I grew up here, born and raised here. I've worked in the central part of the district as a DBD director. I've been city treasurer for a while. So it's really an honor. It's truly humbling.
Okay. Now, so you've been really involved with either you work in the city and then you work in Stamford, working for the school system there?
Yes, I work for a small school. I'm a parent advocate and help parents navigate political and educational systems.
Okay. And, given everything that's going on with the state and our kind of political environment right now, I mean, kind of what made you want to be a state representative given, our budget situation and where things are with politics in this state?
Yeah, I mean, all the way from the national level all the way to the local level, things can be very divisive, but it's divisive because these are issues that we all care about. I mean, we're talking about people's lives, whether it's what schools children can go to and whether they have high quality education, wages, and making sure that we can afford all the things we need, being able to stay healthy with good insurance. People should care. People should be riled up because it's really near and dear to your life. So this is where you can really make some hard decisions and hard choices and make great policy in order to better your community. So this is the exact time that you want to run. This is one time you want to serve because you can make major changes for people's lives and the betterment of folks' lives.
And one of the things you were telling me before we came on the air was that how even when you go to the grocery store just needing a carton of milk, you can spend an hour in there because people are coming up to you. They know who you are. And I'm sure they're telling you what's on their mind. And what are some of the things that you're hearing from people when you go into the store or just on the street in Middletown?
Yeah, I said my wife is like, if we have to get milk or eggs, she's like, I'll just go. It's going to take you too long. But I said, I appreciate that. I want folks to really communicate, whether it's texting me or reaching out to me on Facebook. But I'm hearing a lot. I'm hearing a lot about wages. I'm hearing a lot about the high cost of health care. We have an opioid epidemic going around in our community, and people really need relief. And we really need to get to the root cause of like why folks are seeking drugs in order to escape the realities of our world. So I think we both need to get people help when they are having those sort of crises, but we also need to work on our prevention so folks aren't seeking those alternative measures to help feel better.
Right.
Because it's not lasting.
No, and trying to give them some opportunity, whether it's education or a good job in the city or wherever they're living, to kind of show them that there's a pathway to success and a pathway to a brighter future, and not having to kind of feed into something like you say, drug addiction or gambling or whatever else.
High quality educational opportunities, high quality jobs, in healthcare, so they can get either mental health support or sometimes when it's like physical pain that folks are trying to escape. If we had a much stronger support and safety network, I don't think we'd have the opioid crisis that we do have.
So in the work that you've done in Middletown and in Stamford as well, in Middletown specifically, you were working on developing a lot of what was happening on Main Street and trying to make a more vibrant city for all of our residents here. How do you see that kind of translating into that work on a statewide level?
Right now, the state of Connecticut needs to figure out what the best practices are and just replicate that. And we have a lot of great assets in the state of Connecticut, and specifically right here in Middletown. So our Main Street is probably the most vibrant Main Street in any city throughout the state of Connecticut and probably in the country. We have not one but two great colleges in our state. We have a riverfront that is well for developing. Our school system, generally speaking, are great. I mean, McDonough and the Middletown High, between their band program and arts program, DECA, over and over again. We have tons and tons of assets that we should be replicating throughout the state. So I think having those many different perspectives and relationships and saying, okay, here are the things that we can invest in on a statewide level and really kind of using Middletown as that pilot, I think is going to help excel our state to what we can become.
Okay, great. Well, it's time for a quick break here on Middlesex Moments, and when we come back, more with newly elected State Representative Quentin Phipps from the 100th District representing Middletown. You're listening to Middlesex Moments from Middlesex Community College. Stay tuned for more. Welcome back to Middlesex Moments, coming to you from Middlesex Community College. This is Steve Minkler together with my guest, Q Phipps, the newly elected state representative from the 100th District here in Middletown. And before the break, we were talking a little about kind of using Middletown almost as a pilot, being a really vibrant downtown area and seeing how we could maybe scale that up on a statewide basis. But something you also said was looking at best practices from around the state or around the country to bring those to Connecticut. What are some of the priorities that you have coming up in this your first legislative term in trying to improve the lives of the citizens of the state of Connecticut?
Well, I'm serving on 3 committees. I'm serving on finance, which I'm really, really excited for, especially as a 8-year city treasurer. I'm serving on elections committee, and I'm also serving on executive nominations. So that's a good way to help verify and get high quality talent and our commissioners that our governor appoints. So I won't speak too much about the nominations, but on finance, the number one way that Middletown has been able to have such a high bonding rating is because of our full investment in our pensions. Mm-hmm. And we've done that for years consistently. We followed the actuaries' suggestions and recommendations. That is going to be the number one mantra that I talk about when I'm up there, that we have to fully fund our pension liabilities, and that's going to get our budget back on track for the state of Connecticut. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be costly, but that's going to be the number one way that we end up lowering how much money we have to spend, because that's going to increase our bond rating, and that's going to be one of the ways to get our economy back on track and our budget back on track. So I'm really, really excited about serving on finance. And then GAE, right now we have too many obstacles and challenges when it comes to voting. So I'm going to be a strong advocate for early voting, no excuse absentee ballots, making sure that 17-year-olds can sign petitions for ballot access if they're going to be 18 by the time of Election Day. We have to lower the barriers for having your right to vote, and right now they're just too many challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we were talking also before going on air about how we can engage sort of some of Middlesex Community College students in more political awareness and having them. We do voter registration drives here on campus, but what are some ways that you think, especially if we remove those barriers, I think that's a wonderful thing, but how to make sure that people remain engaged and recognize that this is your right and your obligation to be informed about what's going on?
So I think it's a 2-part strategy. One, and the legislature has to make sure that we are giving folks engaging work so they want to be engaged, right? So when I look to serve in a few days officially, if I'm not championing for higher wages, which is going to directly impact students here at Middlesex, if we're not fighting for earned medical leave, if we're not looking at adult use marijuana, the things that folks unquestionably were saying that they were in favor for, then you know what, I would expect for folks not to be engaged. So I think the first part is really our job is to make sure that we're doing engaging work so people want to be engaged with us. Mm-hmm. I'm going to assume that we're going to do our part, which is a big assumption in the state legislature. But I said, I'm going to work my hardest to make sure that happens. But then I would say then it's their turn and our community's turn, and I'm set up as a member of that community. We have to be part of the community conversations. We have to engage with folks on social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter. We have to talk to one another or at the grocery stores. I said I'm still going to be super involved and go to school plays and football games and basketball events and so on and so forth. We just have to be in constant communication with one another and having conversations about what we're trying to do, and that's really going to be the way to move forward.
Okay. Well, you also, in this election, you received well over 60% of the vote, which I think says a lot about you, the trust that people put in you as their state representative and somebody they think is going to get the job done for them. And but I think it also says something about the direction of our state of Connecticut and the fact that the Democrats have widened their majority in the House and now have claimed an absolute majority in the Senate. So what are you kind of reading in some of this in terms of a direction for the legislature, maybe not so much specifically the Democratic caucus, but how can the caucus use that to help determine the future for the state based on what you're hearing in the results of the election? We
have to lead into aggressive, progressive, forward momentum moving policy. The state overwhelmingly elected folks that talked about those sort of messages. So once again, what does that mean? That's higher wages and making sure that when folks work, that they can have a livable wage. That's looking at making more affordable housing throughout the state. That's earned medical leave. So when someone gets sick or if someone gets pregnant, you have a great life event that you can take care of your family. You're not worried about being destitute. That's looking at additional revenue sources, whether it's adult use marijuana, but which would also have to come with expunging people's records and lowering that sort of that abundant prison population that we have. It could be sports gambling, which I don't think it's going to bring in tons of money, but it's going to help with help reduce some of the budget deficits that we have. It's also looking at more equitable funding for our educational system. The education cost sharing formula, I think, has tremendous opportunity to be more fair and more equitable throughout the state of Connecticut. Middletown gets a significant portion, but definitely not enough to help close the opportunity gap and achievement gaps that we have in our city. Yeah. So I think we have to really, really lean into what folks elected us for, which was, I said, truly progressive forward momentum policy.
Mm-hmm. And I think that they're looking to you specifically as someone who you're in several of those lists for the 40 under 40.
Yes. three times, which I'm really, really proud about.
And you should be. And I think you represent the next generation of leadership in the state. And I think people see a lot of momentum from the younger generation, if you want to call it that, the 20 to 40-ish generation, in terms of setting the agenda for the future of this country. So do you feel some sort of special responsibility noting that you are representing that generation, and you're also representing, in a way, you're the first African-American representative from Middletown as well.
Yes.
So even though you do have an obligation to all of the citizens of the area, do you feel any sort of special obligation or pressure from being both younger and the first African American?
Yeah, so both. So one of my favorite books is Rising Stars. It's by JMS, and essentially it's his ode. It's a graphic novel, and it's his ode to Generation Y. And essentially what he's saying is that we have all the assets that we need in order to make this world great. We just have to work together and use it. And I have embraced that mentality. And matter of fact, I think Middletown is a great example. When Wesleyan and the community college and the chamber in City Hall, when we all work together, we make great things happen. That's why we have the vibrant downtown. Like, so for instance, you don't get 2 Thai restaurants, 3 Indian restaurants, mm-hmm. three Indian restaurants, a Tibetan, a Vietnamese restaurant. Almost again, you don't get that sort of vibrancy if you don't have the sort of assets that we have, specifically that I think the college town brings. Mm-hmm. You just don't get that. So we have to continue working together in order to making sure we have the sort of vibrant community that we all know and love and that we talk about. Because people often say that diversity is one of the strongest assets of Middletown. And we really believe that. And we really own it. And I think the election of me, it helps prove that. But that also does give a lot of pressure and gravity. Being the first, I know President Obama was critiqued sometimes fairly and sometimes overly critical, and I have to wonder. And I would sometimes, I would be frank, I would say yes. A lot of times it was just purely because of his race, and I would expect that sort of feedback too. But I think that challenge of knowing that I have to do better and be the best as much as I can is kind of one of the things that helped get me here. So right. I'll own it. I'll embrace that and keep working hard. Right.
Well, and I think it's also a great example of you being a role model.
So I really do take on that sort of like role model idea and concept really to heart. And I would even say I was a mentor from the Chamber Mentor Program for 4 years. And my little buddy changed my life. So a lot of times I just hope that I'm giving back to him what he gave to me, because he changed my life for the better.
Absolutely. All right, well, time for another quick break.
All right.
So you're listening to Middlesex Moments from Middlesex Community College, and we'll have more with my guest, Q Phipps, the state representative from the 100th District, after this break. Stay tuned for more.
Starting back in high school, I was not the best student. It wasn't that I was not able to do the work, it was just that I had no motivation to do work. And so I decided that Middlesex was the best option for me. You have a lot of support here. I had professors that cared about me, that pushed me in ways. I went to Middlesex Community College and transferred to Wesleyan University with a full scholarship, and it's all because I did well at Middlesex.
Middlesex Community College is your college, your future. Welcome back to Middlesex Moments, coming to you from Middlesex Community College. This is Steve Minkler, together with my guest, Q Phipps, the newly elected state representative from the 100th District here in Middletown. Before the break, we were talking a little bit about mentoring, actually. You were talking about a little brother that you had as part of Big Brothers, Big Sisters? Or
it was the Chamber mentoring program.
That's right. So in terms of mentoring, actually for yourself, being a newly elected state rep, I'm curious, what kind of mentoring or orientation do you get as a new state representative? This has to be a pretty big deal, and they're not just going to throw you in there at the Capitol and let you swim for yourself, are they? Or?
So we've had 2 orientations already and learned a lot about the process. So there's more acronyms than I care to name at this moment. But also, I've been lucky to join 2 major caucuses in the House. So one, the Black and Latino Caucus, which has been super, super helpful. Representative Brandon McGee of Hartford-Windsor is a great leader and is already putting forth a racial justice platform that is going to help propel our state in the right direction. So I call him often. I call Representative Pat Miller from Stanford often too to say, like, what does this mean? What is going on? And also, I should also give another major shout out to the Majority Leader, Matt Ritter, who has been phenomenal leader already. And I probably text him once a day to say, like, hey, what's going on? This doesn't make sense to me. So I've had great relationships there. And then also in the Progressive Caucus, James Albus has been a great leader already. Who's a representative from East Haven, is doing great. I said, is really leading forward a progressive agenda, specifically along raising wages and earned medical leave, and also adult use marijuana. Has been doing a phenomenal job, and I'm actually lucky to lead the elections committee of part of the Progressive Caucus. So we have some partners to make sure that we can get these changes that we want.
Excellent. And we're also, this program actually will air on Inauguration Day for our new governor, Ned Lamont. And what kind of festivities are planned for the inauguration, and how do you see yourself working with the new governor? So
we get sworn in at 10 a.m. As the new legislators. I know my mom and my wife are coming with me, so they're really excited and going to be on the floor. So I'm really excited about that. There's an inaugural ball that evening. Tickets are on sale, and if you just Google inaugural ball CT, you should be able to find the link to the tickets. And those funds go to the Governor's Guard, so a nonprofit organization. So it's not a campaign event; it's nonpartisan. It's really to help us get a really cool asset to the state and make sure that gets funded.
Sure.
So yeah,
an exciting time. And
it's really exciting. But also we get to work that day, right? So we're there's committee meetings that day. There's I don't think there's any public hearings, but the rules are adopted that day. You get off to work right on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you get to enjoy it really quick and
really quick.
But
it was funny. My wife was like, "Oh, so can we go to lunch?" I'm like, "No, I'm working. that's my work day. It's 10 o'clock." But I have literally dreamt and worked for a day like this, and I really couldn't be more humbled from the investment that the city of Middletown has made in me. All the way from as a child, I grew up in Woodbury Circle, not too far from where we're being taped right now. I'm in literally walking distance. I've been going to Billfield and Wilson and Middletown High. Throughout my entire experience, people have invested in me and saying, like, we know you can do well. And even when I was knocking on doors and re-meeting folks, they were like, we always knew you were going to be doing this one day. And that's really humbling, but it also inspires you to make sure that you do great things for your community, because they've always expected great things from me, and I'm going to keep working to make sure I don't let those folks down.
Absolutely. And I think, you sound like the right guy at the right time with your background in business and finance. You're on the finance committee of the legislature, and we're going to have a tough time with the state budget. And what are some of the things that you are kind of sensing right now from our new governor, and what some of his priorities might be, or how, if that's not clear, how he's going about trying to find what the priorities ought to be?
I will give him a lot of credit. He has a great team around him in his core folks. So his budget director, Melissa McCall, is brilliant. She's also a fellow Middletown resident, so super excited to work with her. Paul Mounds, his COO, his entire team around him are well-established, well-respected leaders in public administration. So I think I'm looking really, really forward to working with him. He's also someone that has not been afraid to admit when I just don't know. And we had some really tough conversations about racial justice and racial equity when he came to the Black and Puerto Rican caucus. And he flat out said, like, I don't understand, which is a great starting point, right? But because then we can help. We can get him in the right direction. We can give him books to read and so on and so forth. We can help with those sort of issues. So I'm really, really excited to work with him. I do think having multidisciplinary approach, whether it's business or public administration or education, all the different fields that we can look to solve problems are going to be really helpful. So I'm looking for him to bring a business perspective the same way that I'm looking forward to bringing an activist perspective, an education perspective, and finance, and all the many different sort of fields that I've come from.
Yeah. Well, and because you both have business backgrounds, at least you can talk the same language when it comes to some of those issues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the number one thing that will help Connecticut right now is recognizing our assets and playing to our assets and being proud of those assets. Too often we talk about Connecticut's not doing this well. This is bad and that's bad. But things are fairly good, and things I would even say things are good. And I think Middletown's a great example. I said we have a budget that's doing well. We have a robust downtown. We have tons of potential on the riverfront. Like we had the ice skating that's been going on for the last few weeks. Those are things that we can really build and grow upon, but we have to embrace that and say how great it is and not always just talk about how bad things are.
Right. Well, in Middletown, we've got, a strong school system with a great new superintendent.
And Dr. Connor's doing phenomenal.
He's amazing. And we've got a lieutenant governor also from the city of Middletown, too. So we've got a lot of puzzle pieces in place to make things happen.
The delegation that Middletown is bringing with Senator-elect Abrams and Senator-elect Lester, who was a longtime staple, my predecessor in this seat, and Representative Sarah, who is, as about as elder statesman as you can get. We have a great delegation that has been working hand in hand with one another, talking about how we can work together to make sure that Middletown grows and is economically viable, but also looking how we do this equitably for all of our residents.
Right. So if you were to kind of magically transport yourself into the future by 20 years, let's say, so almost the year 2040, what do you think Middletown might look like, and what do you think the state of Connecticut might look like?
I think we're looking at a state where race and gender are no longer, and also economics and socioeconomic status are not the number one indicators on how well you will or won't do. I think we're looking at a state that you can be transported economically viably and a lot cheaper and quicker than where we are now. I think we're looking at an economy based off of a green economy, whether that's solar or wind, and we can invest in our energy, but also doing it in a way that protects our environment so that generations after us can still be here. I think we're looking at school systems, both at early ed and higher ed, that are attracting great businesses, but our children can see their careers go to where they want to go. Whether in a trade or from a college standpoint. I think or if you want to be super specific, I think we're looking at a more robust downtown and where folks are living and working and enjoying themselves downtown, and a Route 9 that is going to look vastly different, whether we're going above it or under it, or maybe there's a train shooting right through it. But I will say maybe it'd be one that doesn't have stoplights, but I would say it's also one that's not going to be rerouted right into the north end, right into the backyard of many folks' homes. I don't think that's an equitable way of doing it either. But I think that's the sort of the joy that comes with this right now, that we have hard challenges is going to be incredibly tough. But when we all work together and we're talking, and I said when I mean we all, that's the downtown business district, that's the chamber, that's City Hall, that's the residents from the many different communities, whether it's Woodbury Circle, the North End, or Westlake, where all places that I've lived, when we're all coming together and we're talking, and we're bringing those sort of diverse perspectives that we all know and love, which is why we moved to Middletown. we're going to lead our city in the right direction, and then our city is going to help propel the state to where we should be going.
Great. Well, we have time for one last question,
Awesome.
which if you think kind of that future orientation, if you can imagine talking to that young person that you were the mentor for, or any young person of that age, the mid-teens, what advice would you give them about becoming involved to make a vision for the future like that a reality for whatever it is that they would like to have happen?
I would say first get a wide breadth of knowledge and build relationships, talk to folks, and the number one. Let me take a step back. Greg Boyle, who is a Catholic priest and a nonprofit administrator out in California. And he talks about service is not about what you can give, it's about what you can receive. In the sense of like when you're serving folks and you're learning about their stories and you're seeing their pain and their struggles, you take that on with you. So I would really encourage young people to really receive, learn from folks, learn their stories, get involved in as much as you can, and then start to narrow down later. There's a lot out there, and you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. So just enjoy being young. And I would say that one of the best assets about being young is the ability to say, like, I don't know. When you're young, no one will judge you or critique you for not knowing something because you're young. You're not supposed to know things. And I still use that at 35 and still claim to be young. I think young folks would say I'm not as young anymore, but I'm going to own being young.
You should.
So I think, but I really do think that we as Gen Y and millennials, we have all the tools and the assets to make this world great and be better. We just have to embrace it and embrace the values that we care about: diversity, inclusivity, and information.
All right. Well, Q Phipps, I really thank you for being a guest on today's edition of Middlesex Moments. So good to see you again, and we wish you all the best of luck in Hartford in your role as our
And thank you, Dean, for having me. It's been great to be on this campus again. I said I have several siblings that are alum here and current students here. Middlesex is a great asset to our community. And even this radio system, this is awesome. And this is exactly why we need to further invest in our community college system, because when you don't have assets like this in our city, we miss out. So what you've been able to bring here and do here has been incredible. So thank you for having me.
Well, thanks very much. And and actually that kind of segues nicely into just letting our listeners know that we are actively registering for the spring semester. So
Perfect.
If you're interested in media or many of the other career fields that we have here at the college, please join us anytime on campus to see us. We're here at 100 Training Hill Road in Middletown. We also have a Meriden Center located at Platt High School at 220 Coe Avenue, where we have classes in the afternoons and evenings 4 days a week. And you can always visit us online 24/7 at mxcc.edu. So on behalf of Q Phipps and everybody here at Middlesex Community College, I'm Stephen Minkler, and we hope to see you again soon.